Hey YouTube, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be going over brief psychotic disorder versus schizophreniform versus schizophrenia versus schizoaffective. Very similar, but there are some differences, so stay tuned. And before we jump into it, I have listed here on the screen the antipsychotic medications, and also check the link in the description. I actually made a video on how to break down the medications, and we can memorize a good amount of them with seemingly no work. So definitely check the video in the description for that as well. Something else I included as well that they may ask you on the exam, may not, but tardive dyskinesia is a possible side effect of long-term use of antipsychotic medications. Tardive dyskinesia causes involuntary facial and body movements affecting the tongue, lips, face, blinking, waving of the arm. So again, the more you know. Okay, so now we're going to break down some of the symptoms that we may see, and one of the primary symptoms is some form of a hallucination. So there's a good chance some form of a hallucination will be identified within the question if the exam is trying to get you to differentiate between them and pick the correct answer. So while any hallucination, if it is present, can be present amongst these, I just want to just kind of go over it a bit with you guys and just kind of break down which hallucination is present for the sense that it's talking about. So the first one is visual hallucinations. Visual hallucinations involve seeing things that aren't there. Olfactory hallucinations, smelling things that aren't present within the environment. Gustatory hallucinations, which are tasting things that aren't present in your mouth. Auditory hallucinations, which are hearing voices or sounds that aren't present. And then tactile hallucinations, feeling a sensation on your body, such as a touch or a movement within your body. So just wanted to kind of break those down really quick. So now we jump into the main factor. What to look for when differentiating between them since they are so similar. Time frame, and time frame. This will be the primary indicator. When we're taking the exam and we're reading through the question, pay attention to the time frame. Pay attention to the time frame. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Pay attention to the time frame, because brief psychotic disorder, schizophrenia, schizophreniform, they could say within the question that someone's experiencing one of the hallucinations that we just went over, visual hallucinations, olfactory hallucinations. That's not going to be a differentiating factor where you're like, oh, okay, it's this versus that. The time frame is going to be a big indicator of whether you're picking this answer or you're picking that answer. So again, time frame. Okay, Ray. Okay. What is the time frame then? Brief psychotic disorder, symptoms must be present for less than 1 month, 30 days or less. Schizophreniform disorder, symptoms must be present for more than 1 month, but less than 6 months, so 1 to 6 months. And then schizophrenia, symptoms must be present for 6 months and beyond, so 6+ months. So if we're going through the exam and out of the answer choices, they want us to kind of pick, hey, is it brief psychotic disorder, schizophreniform, or schizophrenia? If something's been going on, that the symptoms have been present for, let's say, 8 months of hallucinations, right? Or paranoia or delusions, schizophrenia. Why? Because it's greater than 6 months. It can't be brief psychotic disorder because once it goes over that 30 days of those present psychotic symptoms like hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, brief psychotic disorder is out. Same thing with schizophreniform. Once it goes past that 6 months window, it's not schizophreniform. Now, let's say if it's at a 4-month window, the symptoms were present, then it would be schizophreniform because 4 months is greater than the 30 days. So that rolls off brief psychotic disorder. And 4 months hasn't reached that 6-month marker yet. So we can't label it schizophrenia. So pay attention to the time frames, a big giveaway. Now, let's break down schizoaffective disorder. Oh man, like this is one that really trips a lot of people up because honestly, even when you're reading through the DSM-5, it kind of throws you for a loop at times, the way it's structured and how they're kind of breaking it down. But don't worry, I got you guys. So schizoaffective disorder is a combination of psychotic symptoms and affective, which is the mood, like your affect symptoms, such as depression or bipolar disorder. The presence of a mood issue is the main giveaway. So we're looking for, again, the presence of a mood related issue. Also, psychotic symptoms. Affective equals the mood symptoms, which is depression or the bipolar. And I wrote it and I broke it down for you guys right here. So delusions or hallucinations, which are the psychotic symptoms, are present for 2 or more consecutive weeks without mood symptoms at some point during the life of the illness. Mood symptoms are present for the majority of the illness, but again, there needs to be a period of 2 or more consecutive weeks where the only symptoms present are the psychotic symptoms. So you may be wondering, okay, Ray, I saw before in the DSM-5 or just, on some other, platform test, whatever it may have been, I seen schizoaffective disorder, depressed type, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type, major depressive disorder with psychotic features, and then bipolar disorder with psychotic features. How, how do I know? How do I know? Got you guys. The primary disorder is first, the secondary disorder is second. So when you're reading it, schizoaffective disorder, depressed type, or bipolar disorder with psychotic features, the primary is first, the second disorder is second. How do you figure out which one is primary and which one is secondary? Whichever symptoms, the psychotic symptoms or the mood symptoms, exist by themselves for at least 2 weeks without the other one is the primary disorder. The secondary symptom becomes present later. So again, we want to look for the symptoms that are isolated for at least 2 weeks. They can go more than 2 weeks. It could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, etc. But we want those symptoms to be isolated. So if you're having and experiencing psychotic symptoms, the other symptoms aren't present, like the mood symptoms. The primary ones have to be isolated for those 2 week time period, at least 2 week time period. Wait a second, Ray. I'm still maybe not following fully. Further explanation. I got you guys. If someone has major depressive symptoms for at least 2 weeks, and during those 2 weeks, they have no psychotic symptoms, then the primary disorder is major depressive disorder, but because at some point they also get psychotic features such as a form of hallucinations, the correct diagnosis would be major depressive disorder with psychotic features. Because remember, during the life of the illness, it's schizoaffective if there's been a period where they're like, wait a second, there's been an isolated 2 or more weeks where the only symptoms present was the psychotic features. And if it's major depressive disorder with psychotic features, there's been a period of the major depression. There were no psychotic features present. It was just the symptoms of MDD. And then later on, if someone were to experience the psychotic features. So we just want to keep that in mind. Again, the primary symptoms are present for at least 2 weeks, which makes them primary, without the other symptoms being present. Then the other symptoms become present at some point secondary. Okay, so let's jump into 2 practice exam questions I have for you guys. A client is referred to the social worker after being discharged from the psychiatric hospital. The records indicate that she has been hearing voices for the past 5 months. The client most likely has a diagnosis of A, schizophreniform, B, schizophrenia, C, schizoaffective, or D, brief psychotic disorder. Take a second, pause. If you picked schizophreniform, let me get it right here, schizophreniform, then you are correct. Why? So I put here hearing voices. Remember, those are auditory hallucinations because they may not just flat out say on the exam, hey, they're experiencing visual hallucinations. They're experiencing auditory hallucinations. They may say hearing voices. So we just want to make sure that we actually understand what auditory hallucinations are and how they kind of present themselves. So the client is experiencing auditory hallucinations, right? Remember, that's not a differentiating factor because they all can experience some form of hallucinations. But the time frame, 5 months, it can't be schizophrenia because symptoms must be present for 6 months and beyond. It can't be schizoaffective. Nothing regarding affect, which is the mood, is mentioned in here. So, and with brief psychotic disorder, oops, it's down here. With brief psychotic disorder, it's been greater than 30 days. So that's why that would be ruled out. So schizophreniform would be the correct answer because it's within that 1 to 6 month time frame and it's only been 5 months. So that's why we would go with A, schizophreniform. Okay, so now let's look at this one. Question number 2. A 32-year-old man meets with a social worker due to seeing shadow figures and having a decreased mood within the past 2 months. The man reports lacking motivation to do previously enjoyable activities such as fishing. During the assessment, the man reported having visual hallucinations for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, the man confirmed his visual hallucinations were the only symptoms present at the time. His diagnosis is most likely A, major depressive disorder with psychotic features, B, schizoaffective disorder, C, schizophrenia, or D, brief psychotic disorder. Take a second, pause the video, reread the question, and then pick your best answer. Okay, so now let's jump into the explanation. So again, a 32-year-old man meets with a social worker due to seeing shadow figures and having a decreased mood. Highlighted that because that's showing the affect part, right? Within the past 2 months. So we're actually going to highlight this as well. Within the past 2 months, because anything with a time frame we want to take note of. The man reports lacking motivation to do previously enjoyable activities such as fishing. So anhedonia, a decrease in pleasure and previously enjoyable activities. So that's, again, contributing more to the depressed aspect of it. During the assessment, the man reported having visual hallucinations for 3 weeks. So again, visual hallucinations for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, the man confirmed his visual hallucinations were the only symptoms present at that time. His diagnosis is most likely. So let's look at A for major depressive disorder with psychotic features. The man reported experiencing both psychotic symptoms plus mood-related symptoms upon meeting with the social worker. If he reported having a period of only experiencing the mood-related symptoms for at least 2 weeks instead, A would be the correct answer because MDD would be primary. B of schizoaffective disorder is the correct answer. Why? Whichever symptoms, the psychotic symptoms or the mood symptoms, exist by themselves for at least 2 weeks without the other one is the primary disorder. The secondary symptoms become present later. So if we scroll back up, remember, within this time frame, the man noted that the only symptoms present were the psychotic symptoms, where the man was experiencing visual hallucinations of seeing those shadow figures. So that's why it's been an isolated period of time. When you have schizoaffective disorder, you can experience both psychotic symptoms and mood-related symptoms at the same time, but within the span of the illness, there needs to be a period where you've only for at least 2 weeks or more experience either just the psychotic symptoms, which would make it schizoaffective disorder, or if there was a period where you only for 2 or more weeks experienced the mood related symptoms, whether it was like a manic episode or if it was major depression, then it would be, if it was the manic symptoms, the bipolar type, and then if the psychotic symptoms became present later, it would be bipolar with psychotic features. Or if it was the depression symptoms for a period of time and they were isolated, then it would be MDD with psychotic features if the psychotic features became present later. So remember, those are the main indicators: time frame and which symptoms are isolated by themselves for at least 2 weeks or more. And then schizophrenia, not indicated. that his symptoms have been present for at least 6 months. And brief psychotic disorder, 2 months is greater than the criteria for brief psychotic disorder of 1 month or less. So that's why those two options are ruled out. We got to work with what the question gives us, and remember, it's not always going to give the perfect fit for each one. Remember, if the answer choice was, if the right answer was schizophrenia, it could say they had it for a year, which of course is beyond 6 months. So it's not always going to say 6 months. It's not always going to say 1 month. The test could say, all right, we're just going to make it more or less to fit into whatever the criteria is. So you just want to keep those time frames in mind. Okay, guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I really tried to break it down in the most simplistic way possible, but if you're still struggling with it, leave a comment below and I'll try to answer in a more clear, more precise way as possible, because it can be confusing, and I definitely want you guys to pass, especially when it gets to schizoaffective. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as I plan to come out with more content, and you got this. I know it could be like, I don't want to take this thing. You got this. You take it, you pass it, you move on. Once these exams are done, they're done. Study, get the information, and then we move on with our lives. But you guys got this. So I look forward to seeing you guys and hearing more about how you guys passed the exam. You guys got this. Bye.